September 2007, a dairy farmer in the quiet province of Hebei, China, would start to produce a protein powder mixture, and then, over the course of the next 11 months, he would distribute over 700 tons of this powder. This powder would be the catalyst of what would be one of the worst food poisoning scandals in history, and would lead to over 300,000 babies being infected. But what exactly was this powder? And how did it lead to the deaths of babies and the executions of those involved? This is the 2008 Chinese milk scandal. So at the center of this scandal, there is the Sanlus Group. Now, Sanlus Group was a Chinese dairy product company that was originally founded in 1956. They would then, in 1983, become the first company to launch infant formula in China. From 1996, they had become a respected company in the dairy industry, mainly due to the leadership of Tian Wenhua, and would capture 18% of the Chinese market for 15 consecutive years. And so people thought they could trust this group. Sadly, they were very wrong, because starting from 2007, Sanlus Group would start to receive health complaints regarding their milk and infant formula, and these would start to ramp up a lot in early 2008, with reports of infants having urine discoloration, and with some of them requiring to go to the hospital to seek treatment, with reports of kidney stones being present. Sanlus Group realized at this moment that babies getting kidney stones, which are one of the most painful experiences a person can go through, is not a good look for the company. And so they started to conduct tests with their milk and infant formula throughout the month of June and July. And finally, on August the 1st, they discovered their milk contained large amounts of melamine. Now, how did this melamine get in the milk, and what exactly is this melamine? Well, let's talk about the farmer I brought up at the start of the video. His name was Zhang Yujun. He was a dairy farmer that would sell his raw milk to various stations that would eventually make its way to Sanlus Group. Now, at the time in China, all raw milk sales needed to have a protein percent of 2.95. This was quite doable, as most raw milk usually sat in the ranges of 2.8 to 3.4%. However, also at this time, Zhang Yujun would face increased costs with things like his livestock, feed, farming facilities, as well as the government imposing price caps. This meant that 1, if he even had a little bit of milk that did not meet this standard, it could not be sold, and this would be absolutely devastating for him, as he needed all the money he could get. He also knew that the higher the protein percent of the milk, the higher price he could get for it. And so because of these two factors, he decided to create the infamous protein powder mixture containing melamine. Now, melamine is a compound that is often used to make tableware like plates, cups, bowls, and the like. Now, it's also extremely high in nitrogen. Now, why does this matter? Well, in those protein tests that Zhang Yujun's milk would need to pass, those tests don't directly test the protein percent of the milk, rather they test the nitrogen content of the milk, as the nitrogen content and the protein content are usually very similar. But by adding melamine to the milk, they could falsify these tests by increasing the nitrogen content of the milk to make its milk appear to have a lot more protein than it actually did. But the biggest problem of the addition of melamine was the health effects it had on people. So melamine can cause harmful health effects like kidney stones, which a lot of the infants going to the hospital were reporting, as well as the fact that it is thought that this melamine wasn't just pure melamine, but scrap melamine, which would contain a lot of impurities like cyanuric acid, which can bond with the melamine, creating crystals, which would exacerbate the problem. And so going back to Sanlus Group, once they had discovered this melamine in their milk on August the 1st, they decided to do two things: inform their joint venture partner Fonterra, who was and is a dairy company from New Zealand, and issue a trade recall of the milk. Now, a trade recall only recalls the milk that was sold to their wholesalers, not the milk that was sold in the retail stores or what the public has at their homes. That would be a full public recall. And so this was very, very, very bad, as even though Sanlus knew their milk was compromised, they still allowed it to be sold in the retail stores and to be drank by thousands and thousands of babies, infecting many more than what should have been due to their reluctance to pull their product. Now, that's not to say they didn't want to. In fact, sources say here that they approached the local government requesting to do a full public recall, but were shot down that they should, quote, wait until the end of the 2008 Beijing Olympics and then crack down on the perpetrators, and, quote, pay money to silence local victims. Yes, they actually said that. That was not good. Now, Fonterra also was telling Sanlus to do a full public recall. Unfortunately, their requests were pretty much ignored again and again until Fonterra decided enough was enough and told the New Zealand government, in which Helen Clark, who was the Prime Minister at the time, would confront the Chinese government into announcing the scandal to the public, and then on the 12th of September, Sanlus Group would announce the infected milk to the public, and this is where it went all downhill for Sanlus. So once it was announced that the milk was infected, stock prices started to fall, a full public recall was announced, with 10,000 tons of infant powder being seized and destroyed. The news will quickly spread across China, but also across the world, with many countries just outright banning Chinese dairy products, making Chinese companies like Sanlus suffer heavy losses. Now, speaking of Sanlus, during this time they would receive lawsuit after lawsuit, and they would eventually be bankrupt and forced to sell their assets, but not before the Chinese government would crack down so hard on everyone involved. So as the scandal was getting out and more negative reception and news was releasing about China and their food products and their milk, the Chinese government realized they had to make a stand and prove to the world that they would not stand for this. And so they sent in the prosecutors and arrested many people from the entire milk supply chain, from the farmers to the manufacturers, and would hand out many big punishments. The notable ones include Zhang Yujun, this was the guy who created the melamine mixture, as well as Gen Jinping, who was said to have produced the toxic milk. Both of these people would get the death penalty. Tian Wenhua, who, if you remember, was the CEO and led Sanlus to become the top dairy company, would get life imprisonment, as well as tens of other people, mainly dairy farmer owners and producers, receiving prison sentences as high as 15 years. And so yeah, the Chinese government did not go easy. However, the damage was already done. The final estimates for the infection was 300,000, with 6 babies dying and many more having health complications, some of them lasting a long time after this scandal. So the damage to the Chinese food and drink industry was already done, especially the dairy industry, which only exports a measly 22 million, with 94% of that going to Hong Kong, compared to the huge imports of 2.14 billion in 2021, which says a lot about how the rest of the world still views their dairy industry. And so, in the end, it was a failure at 2 parts. The first was the decentralized supply chain and the lack of proper food regulation standards, which led to the profit-seeking individuals who, at the cost of the people's health, decided to cut corners, which led to the melamine-infected milk and the reluctance of those manufacturers to enforce these proper health standards. However, it still needs improvement, and hopefully they continue on improving their food safety standards so something like this never happens again. Thank you for watching.